Good morning. Happy Thursday. It is Thursday, July 18th, 2024. Thank you for joining me. Beautiful day in the neighborhood. A little bit warmer out there today. Yesterday it was 74 and today it's 80 on the back porch. And it is a little bit more warm. It's still enjoyable. It's still a beautiful morning, but it's not a little bit cooler. And we'll probably have these types of mornings for the next month or so. So it's part of life. Hope you're having a great day. It looks like there's a few clouds in the sky. We have started construction of what we're calling the 400 buildings. We have the existing school and youth are in the 300 buildings, and we're building a whole nother set of buildings to the west of that called the 400 buildings. And over the last 2 weeks, Earth Mover has kind of built a pad for those buildings. Well, the pad was completed last week, and they started moving the buildings over. All the buildings are on the pad, and 2 of the buildings are in their location attached together, and they're putting the foundation under the building. So it's going rather rapidly, actually. but it's something I wasn't anticipating this week. So it's been fun. Let me put it. It's been fun. It's every time you're into construction, there's executive decisions that have to be made, and so there's been quite a few this week. But it should be the buildings. Actually, I'm thinking by the end of next week, the buildings should all be on their pads, put together, fully embraced, and all of that sort of thing. So that's exciting. You're getting very, very close. And then once the buildings are in place, you bring water to them, sewer, electricity, all the different things you're going to build to the buildings, bring to the buildings. And then there's other site work. Obviously, you've got to, make them look nice and all that sort of thing. Let's see. We have no baby yet. I keep waiting for my daughter to tell me that this baby's born. Apparently, it's pretty close. Just double checking to see. Yeah, no text message, nothing. I mean, she is way overdue. So I know that the longer the baby stays in there, the better. But I think somebody said that if it stays in too long, the placenta starts to decay or something like that. So I don't know. But she is like on the brink, and could be in the hospital right now for all I know. Birthdays. We have no birthdays today, but we have 2 birthdays on Saturday. Let's see, today, yeah. 2 birthdays on Saturday, Bob Hoffman and Bob Parrott. So happy birthday to both of you on Saturday. May you have a blessed day. And may God bless you fully with joy, happiness, peace, love. Let's see. All right. Let's get into our study. Before we get into our study, so we're trying to figure out. We're working on bringing Jennifer's parents to Arizona, and so over the next 2 to 3 weeks, that's one of the major tasks that we've got before us. And we've put down a deposit on a house to rent that's real close to. It's in Del Lago, so that's exciting. And the next step is to get all their furniture and goods here and to get them here. And none of the kids live with them. Like they don't live near. I mean, for us, it's a 3-hour flight, but to some of the kids, the closest kids are a 5-hour road trip. So trying to work through and navigate all this is just been interesting and challenging, but we'll get through it. But we are, that's something. I guess what I'm saying is that it's quite possible that over the summer, between now and Christmas, that I might have to take off another week just to deal with that. But we'll see how that goes. But for right now, we haven't quite figured out all the details yet, so it's all up in the air. All right, so let's get into our study. We're in chapter 11. We've heard about how wonderful Solomon is, how wise he is, how wealthy he is, how awesome he is. Oh my goodness, Solomon walks on water. He's just such a great king. Sheba comes, the queen of Sheba comes to just bow at his feet and be so impressed by his wealth and his wisdom and all the other rulers of all the other lands. He's such a great guy. Well, at some point, that stuff could get to your head. And at some point, you might be so wise that you think that you've got more wisdom than God. Right? I mean, the only person that's going to tamper your wisdom is the Word of God, the law of God. But sometimes you get to be so smart and so wise that you think you can even be wiser than God. And if you'll remember, that was the downfall of Adam and Eve in the garden. The serpent said, "Did God really say you can't eat from the tree?" And they're like, "Well, yeah." And it's like, "But if you eat, you'll have all these wonderful things. You can be smarter than God. So do it." And so they do. Well, I think Solomon just gets ahead of his skis a little bit. I'm so smart. I can do anything I want. Who's gonna stand up against me? I mean, everybody loves me. Who's gonna stand up against me? And I know better than God what I can do. Sound familiar? So let's start reading in chapter 11. King Solomon, however, loved many foreign women besides Pharaoh's daughter: Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites. They were from nations about which the Lord had told the Israelites, "You must not intermarry with them, because they will surely turn your hearts after their gods." So he sees these foreign women. He's like, I just want that foreign woman, almost like his father. Did he not learn from his father? He saw Bathsheba, and it almost brought down the whole kingdom. And yet Solomon's like, well, I love all these foreign women. I think they're beautiful. So nevertheless, Solomon's held fast to them in love. Listen to this. He had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines, and his wives led him astray. 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines. That's 1,000 women. That is more. You simply can't manage 1,000 women. You just can't. I mean, what I mean by managing is having a relationship, right? Having you can certainly spread yourself thin and have that many wives, but there's no way that you're going to be able to dedicate an intense amount of passion, love, companionship, all the things that go into a marriage when you have that many wives. It's just impossible. And it's going to destroy the few relationships that you do want to keep. It's very, very foolish. I don't know how a man as smart as Solomon thinks he can do this, unless he's just being led astray by his passions and his lust. I mean, that's about all I can think of. I mean, if you are the wealthiest person in the world and you see a woman, you say, I want that woman. Well, who's going to prevent you? You've got money, right? So if there's children born out of that marriage, you can certainly take care of the children. You can certainly create a house for this woman. So, maybe you say, I want that woman. You have that woman, you build her a house, she has a child, and you take care of them because you're the wealthiest person. But over time, this becomes a huge liability. Like huge. 700 wives, 300 concubines. It's just not very wise. That's all I can say. Either he lost his wisdom or some other part of his soul, his psyche, his passion overcame his wisdom, which is not uncommon. There have been a lot of great rulers that have been taken down because their passions got the best of them. And in the heat of the moment, they fall in love. They lust after women that they're not married to. And this has happened time after time after time after time after time after time after time again. And what separates some great leaders from, average leaders is being able to keep that portion of your life in check. And the rest of the world has to do it. I mean, all of us, who are not leaders, don't, we have to live by rules by which society works and by which society happens. Now, if you're a ruler or you're what you might want to call one of the 1% or something like that, and you have all the money in the world and all the resources, yeah, you can have many, many girlfriends and wives and concubines. And even though we in the United States have, say that that's wrong, you all know that there's many, many rulers that have so much wealth that they can do whatever they want, and they can hide whatever they want, and they can have as many dalliances as they want, until it comes out and they want to try to hide it, and then, it's their downfall. It is not good for Solomon to do this. Just because Solomon does it doesn't mean it gives you legal precedence to do it. The Old Testament law still applies. And he's obviously not following the Old Testament law here. And in verse 4, about halfway down, as Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. He followed Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. So Solomon did evil in the eyes of the Lord. He did not follow the Lord completely as David his father has done. So because he's marrying all these other women, he's getting other women to come into his palace, into his circuit, his orb of people. And he is not fully devoted to God, and he follows Ashtoreth. Why would you do that? Well, maybe one of the women is like, well, I follow Ashtoreth. Okay, fine, we'll follow Ashtoreth too. The goddess of the Sidonians. And Molech. Molech was a detestable god. If I remember correctly, there was even child sacrifices and human sacrifices with Molech. I mean, he's an evil god. Why you would follow? I mean, I don't think that Solomon was doing human sacrifices, but the religion does. And you bring that kind of stuff in your palace, that's bad mojo. I mean, that's totally against God. Totally against God. Solomon did evil in the eyes of the Lord. He did not follow the Lord completely as his father had done. And it goes on, verse 7. On a hill east of Jerusalem, Solomon built a high place for Chemoth, the detestable god of Moab, and for Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. He did the same for all his foreign wives who burned incense and offered sacrifices to their gods. So in order for him to bring into his palace these foreign women, they weren't going to do that and follow the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Lord. They wanted to bring into the palace their own gods. And so Solomon goes just east of Jerusalem on a hill and sets up like this pantheon of gods. Like, okay, we're gonna reserve this place over here, and you can go over there and you can worship and sacrifice. This is your place. But it's in Jerusalem, and it sends a message to the rest of Israel that it's okay. It's okay to follow foreign gods. It's fine. We have a place set up. Bring the foreign gods. Set them here on the hill. They can do whatever they want, and you might get curious other Israelites. They're like, well, I wonder what they do over there. So they go and they're like, hey, I like that God too, and they start chatting and finding out what that God can do and who that God is. And, when you open yourself up to that, God, these foreign gods, sometimes your heart can change and turn away from God to these foreign gods. And this is, when you live in a pluralist society, this is always the danger. In the United States, we allow any religion, right, to flourish and prosper here. And so the only way that you can keep people following the one true God is by providing an opportunity for people to come together, worship that God, worship our God, and to create a community by which we all worship the same God. And that's what the church does. We provide that opportunity. But then we walk out the church doors, and then we have to interact with whatever gods might be out there in the world. And sometimes those gods can attract your heart, and who knows what may come of it. That the only way to not have that would be if the whole entire community was set up to follow one God, where the church and the state are kind of the same. And Israel was that. Even modern day Israel today says, we follow the one true God. They don't allow any other religions to come in and infiltrate. Infiltrate is maybe, I guess that's an okay word. Other religions to come in and, be a part of your society. And this is the tension. This is the tension of mankind. I mean, because it is wonderful when the church and the state follow one God, right? I mean, that is absolutely wonderful. The downside of it is then the church becomes so powerful because it's so intertwined with the state that then it can say that the legal authority, like your salvation could be at risk if you don't follow the legal authority. And that's a horrible, horrible potential for abuse by the church state. And so, and there's no way around it. I mean, what the United States does by having a pluralist society and allowing several different religions, there's no established religion, is probably the best way to go, but then it requires strong churches. And it requires the state to protect the church, to be able to flourish and to create community. And right now, I'd say in the United States, they're not doing necessarily a very good job of that. And what I mean by that is when it says separation of church and state, we have that kind of, but that doesn't mean that the state shouldn't encourage churches to do everything they can to help churches, basically, flourish and prosper. Because the church you have the family and you have the church, and both of them are the backbone of society. And I have no problem with pluralist society, but I do have a problem when the state picks one particular religion, Christianity, and crushes it time and time and time again. When we first purchased our property, there's a law it's in the Constitution of Arizona. It says that churches are exempt from taxes, and they started taxing us, the Pima County. And we fought them. We said, you can't tax us, we're a church. And they came after us time and time again and said, no, we want to tax you. And we finally had to hire a lawyer and go after the state. Why would they do that? I can't even begin to tell you how downright crushing it is to your psyche when you're trying to, make sure the church can operate on a budget. And all of a sudden you get this tax bill that's outrageous that is not legal. I mean, it just crushes you. So I was talking to another nonprofit here in Vail. Same thing. And they're not necessarily protected by the Constitution, but they should be tax exempt. And, the Pima County doesn't make it easy. Let me put it that way. Since then, we've elected a new Pima County assessor, and that one is a little bit more friendly to churches. But the old one, man, they just went after a lot of churches needlessly. All right. Where am I? How did I get off on that? Yeah, it's just tough living in a pluralist society. It's tough living in a pluralist society. But the church and the whole purpose of government is to allow freedom for the churches. And that God says in Scripture that government is a gift because it allows the church to flourish. and allows people to flourish. So a good government is a gift from God. A bad government is a curse, but they're both put in place by God, which is why Luther, when he was asked about this, said, yeah, you got to obey the state because there you got to have order. You can't have anarchy. So you got to obey the state. Whatever the state is, you got to obey it. In our particular context, we can overthrow the government if we feel like they're not doing their job. Same thing with kings. I guess you could depose a king, kill a king. And how do you know when to do that? That's a different question. All right, verse 7. We did the verse 7. We're going to do verse 9. The Lord became angry with Solomon because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. Although he had forbidden Solomon to follow other gods, Solomon did not keep the Lord's command. So the Lord said to Solomon, since this is your attitude, and you have not kept my covenant and my decrees, which I commanded you, I will most certainly tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your subordinates. Nevertheless, for the sake of David your father, I will not do it during your lifetime. I will tear it out of the hand of your son. Yet I will not tear the whole kingdom from him, but will give him one tribe for the sake of David, my servant, and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen. So God comes to Solomon and says, listen, you've not done the one thing. You had one job, and the one job was to remain faithful to me. And you've not done this. You brought so many foreign gods in here. And there's going to be a punishment. And the punishment is that the kingdom is going to be torn away from you. But for the sake of David, my servant, I will allow one kingdom to remain in your bloodline. Of course, we know what kingdom that is, right? Because it's the bloodline of Jesus. For the sake of David and the promise to David, right? So from David comes the bloodline of Jesus. And so God allows that bloodline to stay, but all the rest of them get torn away. And they all do get torn away. In many, many places, the kingship stays in the bloodline, right? So it's the king, and then it's the king's son, and then it's the king's granddaughter, and all that sort of thing. I mean, that's where the bloodline stays. But the whole of Israel does not stay together as one nation under one king because Solomon brought in too many foreign gods and too many foreign wives and did not do the one thing he was required by God to do, which was to be the king that constantly brings God in front of the people. What is are his commands? How do we live? Who is God? Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. All these different things that he's supposed to keep on the lips and the minds and the hearts of his subjects, and he doesn't do it. He allows all these foreign gods to come in. He sets up a place for them to worship. And because of that, God tears the kingdom out from underneath him. Doesn't sound like a smart guy. Doesn't sound like he's got a lot of wisdom. I think he has wisdom. I think he just thinks that his wisdom is better than God's law. And that is never a place that you should be, ever. Going against God's law is neither wise nor prudent, and it will always come back at you, as it does towards Solomon. All right, I think we'll leave it there, and we'll pick up the story again in chapter 11, verse 14, where we see Solomon's adversaries. So we'll close in prayer. Dear God, help us to follow you and to remain true to you and be with us until we meet again. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, let me look here. Beautiful morning, beautiful morning, beautiful morning. Yep, it is beautiful morning. Yes, Dick's birthday is coming up. We will get that next week. Absolutely. Yeah, same birthday as Jordan Hilden, if you can believe that. All right, the 22nd, which would be the Monday. Yeah, Monday. Enjoy the day. Thank you for joining me. And as far as housekeeping, yeah, we'll get back together on Monday. And until then, we'll see you later. Take care.